All right, at this time, we'll call to order the City of Kenai Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for January 8th, 2025. Will you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item A2, roll call, please.
Chair Halstead is absent. Commissioner Petty?
Present.
Commissioner Fikes?
Here.
Commissioner Ursley is absent. Commissioner Kraus is absent. Commissioner Woodard?
Here.
And Vice Chair Twait?
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, next item of business is to elect our chair and vice chair for the coming year. I do know that Mr. Halstead said he would be okay doing it again, so throwing that out there if someone wants to make that nomination.
Yes.
Commissioner Petty.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Halstead as our
Chair?
chair, and I would also like to nominate you as our vice chair.
All right.
And request unanimous consent.
All right. Any objections to unanimous consent? All right, seeing none, that is taken care of. We'll move on to scheduled public comment. We got an agenda to read in, don't we? All right, let's do that. All right, item A4. Is there a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda as presented? Commissioner
I'll make
Woodard.
a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
All right. Are there any public comments on any of the consent agenda items? Oh, we need to have her read them in first. Go ahead.
You have approval of minutes, regular meeting of December 11th, 2024, and new business action approval requesting excuse absences for the December 11th, 2024 regular meeting from Commissioners Kraus and Fikes, and that is your consent agenda.
All right. Now, are there any public comments on any of the consent agenda items just read into the record? Okay. Are there any revisions to the agenda? Are there any objections to the agenda and consent agenda? Seeing none, they are approved. We will move on to scheduled public comments. We have none. Takes us to item D, unscheduled public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to any of the items not on tonight's agenda? And it looks like we got some. So you have 30 minutes total, however you guys wish to do that, but we'll let one person come up and we'll start it. So if you want to come up and state your name, and clock will start then. Oh, yeah. All right, all I ask you to do is to turn that little, there should be a little button down there to turn at the bottom. There you go.
Just like the ones at my work. Thank you.
There you go.
Good evening. My name is Marshall Scott Moon. I go by Scott. I'm proud to have lived in Kenai since 1996, and I've owned my home at 608 Ponderosa Street for 15 years now. It'll be 15 years in March, which is hard to believe. I'd like to thank the commissioners and the members of the public for listening to my comments tonight. And I'll be brief so that others will have time. Last summer, Aspen Creek Senior Living commenced work under a somewhat opaquely titled Resolution 2013-18, granting modification to the conditional use permit for an assisted living facility in Kenai. What this conditional use permit actually allowed was for Aspen Creek to create an easement across land they do not own to extend Ponderosa Street. Ponderosa is a 2-block long, narrow, dead-end residential street that comes off the equally narrow Pine Street as one comes off North Forest to access the backside of Aspen Creek's development. The conditional use permit prohibits use that would violate the residential character of the neighborhood and/or generate heavy traffic in a predominantly residential neighborhood. The CUP says that the easement across to and from Ponderosa Street is primarily intended to provide emergency access and vendor deliveries. A one-way access off North Forest Drive is provided to minimize vehicular traffic off Ponderosa Street for employees and additional visitors. In reality, that has not and continues not to be the case. Heavy traffic, especially during morning, noontime, and early evening, goes up and down Ponderosa and Pine, often far exceeding the speed limit to access Aspen from its backside. Vehicles as large as semis with 40-foot trailers are making deliveries down the narrow road. Access referenced in the CUP is indeed in place. Earlier today, I thought that it was not, but today I actually did my own drive. So they do have in place an access to the road alongside their building on the south side that would allow them to get their employees in and out without using Ponderosa. While I am childless, there are a number of families on both Pine and Ponderosa with very small children. I'm even more concerned with what the future holds, as Aspen proudly declares on their website, in their own words, that they are proud to announce a massive remodel of our facility, including expansion of our memory care facility coming in 2026. The word massive is their description. I'll be very quick. Aspen's website proudly proclaims we are home. I value the residences they provide for seniors as I work to help my mom find a similar residence in Florida. But Aspen has not been a very good neighbor and is in violation of the terms of its CUP. I'm asking the city to revisit the terms of the CUP in order to determine whether the terms are a good fit for a substandard residential street. Until the city has the opportunity to revisit the terms of the CUP, I'm asking the city to hold Aspen accountable to the terms that it has agreed to. And thank you very much for allowing me an extra minute.
All right, thank you. Next person.
Excuse me. Could I ask Mr.?
I don't think an unscheduled public comment.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, thank
yeah.
My name is Kit Hill, and I reside at 615 Ponderosa, which is immediately adjacent to the Aspen Creek Access Road. And I'd just like to express some of my concerns about this. As Scott said, our neighborhood has a significant number of young children, and as in many small neighborhoods, streets are narrow and without sidewalks. So my concern is about the increased traffic and the speed of the traffic. I also am concerned that I'm still not clear on their conditional use permit. And we never received notice that the road was going to be constructed. We did receive notices that they were wanting to add additional buildings. And they've done that before, and that's all they did. So I have some concerns. They did not clearly tell the neighborhood that that road was going to be built. And I am sure that the neighbors would have taken the opportunity to testify had they known that that was what was going to happen. And actually, a representative from Aspen Creek, when they started doing the road, told us that it was only going to be temporary during construction. Well, that has not proved to be the case. So I'm asking that you consider these concerns. They're echoed by all of our neighbors. We did a petition, and over 90% of the neighbors did not agree with the way it's being handled right now, and we would like to see it considered. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Shelley Peterson, and I live at 1608 Pine Avenue, and we live on the corner of Pine and Ponderosa. And there's so much more traffic. We've lived in our home for almost 30 years, and my son lived in our home for many, many years. He came this last 2 weeks and stayed with us, and he said all night long traffic was going by, and he was awakened by it. And when they use the street, most of the time, they do not stop at the stop sign. I have almost T-boned people. They're going fast. It's early in the morning, it's all night long, and I just don't think that a business should run their traffic through a neighborhood like that. And it was my understanding from Aspen that their employees were going to continue using the back area for their parking. They were not going to be coming from the front. They were going to continue to do Ponderosa and Pine. I don't know if that's true or not, but I just would like to see something done about it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Kwame, and I live at 1607 Pine Avenue. And I'm here to talk about my concerns with the Aspen Creek Senior Living Center using our neighborhood streets as a route for delivery and staff vehicles. I've lived on Pine Avenue for over 10 years. One of the draws to the neighborhood was the quiet, tranquil streets, and we liked it so much so that when our family grew and we needed a larger home, we actually bought another home on the same street, sold our first house, and moved down because we really loved our neighborhood. However, this past summer, things have changed when Aspen Creek built that back entrance to the property. The sharp increase in traffic has certainly been unwelcome, but we felt like we understood as neighbors that it would be temporary, but we're now learning that there are plans to make this back entrance a permanent commercial delivery destination and staff parking lot for Aspen Creek. I firmly oppose this plan, and I urge the board to take some action. Since they began using our neighborhood as a thoroughfare, myself and many of the other residents, as you can see tonight, no longer feel that our streets are as safe as they once were. Traffic has increased exponentially. We have large delivery trucks and other vehicles that were once a rare occurrence on our street, now something that happens multiple times a day. Employees of Aspen Creek are constantly coming and going, causing a significant increase in traffic. And as Shelley just mentioned, I've watched dozens of vehicles blow through the stop sign at Pine and Ponderosa. My house is right at the intersection of Pine and Ponderosa, so I have a front row seat to semis, box trucks, Aspen Creek vans, and other vehicles failing to stop or speeding through our neighborhood on a daily basis. And it's a major safety concern. I have 2 young children, 8 years old and 3 years old, and I no longer feel that walking in our neighborhood or riding bikes or taking our puppy for a walk is as safe as it once was. I'm concerned that allowing this level of traffic to continue in our neighborhood, especially the large commercial vehicles, negatively impacts the safety of all of the residents. In fact, last week I was off of work for the week, and I spent an hour, because I can see from one of my bedroom windows upstairs, I can see straight down Ponderosa into the beginning of their property back there. There were, out of 21 vehicles that I saw go down Ponderosa, 18 of them went to Aspen Creek, and that is over 85% of the vehicle traffic in just an hour. So I propose that the planning board please consider taking some action. This will reduce the amount of traffic in our neighborhood, making our neighborhood safe again. And I urge you to consider the residents of the city of Kenai over the interests of a for-profit company from out of town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Arliss Maskinis, and I live at 607 Westwood, the little cul-de-sac right before Ponderosa. My biggest concern is looking at the plans on the north or on the south side of the Aspen Creek was supposed to be the in street. The north side was supposed to be the out street, and that was supposed to be for all commercial vehicles. Then I find out that they're going to use the Ponderosa Street for employee parking because it's in the back parking lot. Well, excuse me for calling me stupid, but those side streets go to the back parking lot. So you come off of Forest, you go down the building, you're at the back parking lot, or you can come down Ponderosa, and it comes to this exact same spot. So why can they not use the drive off of Forest Street, go down the south side to the back parking lot, which is shorter by a couple blocks than going down Pine Street in Ponderosa? Now, I've lived in that neighborhood since 1981 when I bought that house. I'm the oldest person in that neighborhood that's continually lived there. And for years, the streets in the summertime are full of kids. And this summer, you didn't see them. I live in the cul-de-sac, so there was a few kids playing there because it was safer there, because it wasn't a thrill street. But there was nothing on Pine Street for decades. There's been kids and walking their dogs, kids in the people in the neighborhood walking their dogs, kids on bicycle and playing ball. I mean, no kids after about a month, nothing. And it's all for profit. They can go off of Forest Drive. The only reason why, in my opinion, the only reason why they want to do it is because when you're sitting in those rooms from the driveway on both sides of the building, it's going to be about this far between the person looking out the window and the vehicle going by, and they don't want to upset their patients. They're right-of-ways too. Huh? Right-of-way? Well, it's between the building and the fence on the Mormon church and the chain link fence on the north side. Remember they put the paved street on both sides and they got the cement blocks? That was supposed to be that they came in off of Forest and went down that, was supposed to be in, and the north side was supposed to come out. Then they decided to change it to where the back parking lot was going to be for employees. Well, that side street goes to the back parking lot. So why can't they go a couple hundred feet from Forest to the back parking lot instead of having to go down and cut 400 or 500 feet down Pine Street and another, 9,000 feet? It's a lot shorter to come off of Forest. And there's no kids playing in the middle of Forest Street. The neighborhood's dead. It's devaluing their house. Who wants to go buy a house when they're looking at 60 to 100 vehicles a day going by their house between employees? They've got a staff of 60 to 80 people. How many employees? Every 8 hours, 3 shifts a day. Enough's enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's John Davis. I live at 1503 Pine Street in the affected area. Been a resident there since '84. I'm probably number 2 in the area. I've never seen that traffic so disgustingly. They're fast, they're not paying attention, and there's a lot of it. I ditto everybody else's comment, but my primary comment here will be, I was not alerted. I think they alerted people 300 feet from some affected area, but there was nothing. They just put a sign on it, said it would be temporary, and I just went with it. And it's like, why wasn't I alerted? I live on the street. It's a short street. There's probably not, a couple dozen people living on that section of where the road is going to the affected area. We should have been alerted, some notification, so we could have come previous and made some comment, but not so. So in the future, I'd appreciate not just my area, but other people's area, to have a little concern for those that are on the affected area. Let them know what's happening. I had no idea, and some of the others didn't either. Thank you.
Thank you. I know a few of the troublemakers still out there, so someone must want to get up here and talk. You might try that. Yeah, go ahead. There's one of them right there.
Sweet, thank you. I just turned it off. Hi, my name is Mary Doobie, and a few things I want to say. I own property on 606 Ponderosa. I am sadly refreshed to hear that I wasn't the only one that didn't receive notice of the original new plans. And I shouldn't be refreshed to hear that, but I thought maybe it's because I don't live there anymore. I own the property. My daughter is staying in our old home. I have lived there since 1991. I have seen our neighborhood ebb and flow between children and no children, and children growing up and growing out. And it's a beautiful thing to see in a neighborhood. And that speaks to my heart, having children in the neighborhood and hearing them playing and riding their bikes. And yes, you teach them to pull off to the side of the road and get off your bike and wait for that car. And even back then, you would have someone that lived at the end of the dead-end street and they would speed to the end of the dead-end street. There are people that are just lead feet, and you have no control over other people. We don't have any control over what's happened in the past. Everything is what it is, regardless of notice, regardless of anything else. But moving forward on a positive note, I don't know how temporary this temporary condition is. One of the things I thought of proactively, what can we do in the summertime when the snow melts and we're no longer plowing? Can we put temporary speed bumps in? I don't live there anymore, and when I did live there, I didn't have to go very far down the street to get home. I don't know if I lived there, if I would want to go over a series of speed bumps to and from my house, to work, lunch, off work, you get the picture. So I can't speak to the people that are still living there. I still go there to see my daughter and my granddog. But so I think that's a concern. The other concern is after talking to Kenai Fire Department, an employee, I don't know that it's better for them to respond to this as far as safety. I don't know, there's difference between fire, there's difference between health response. I don't know how many patients are DNR. I really don't know what their visitor list, how many people are coming and going. I think the employees are the least of the traffic. I think it's the visitors, the taxis, the deliveries. I did a field trip. I don't see how a delivery truck can deliver at the front on Forest Drive. So that speaks to the past. Who permitted that to happen? It was someone under the city of Kenai, some building permit inspector, someone did that. Can't change it now. So moving forward, I would encourage that department to really look at what's happening and think about the future of what's happening. In the meantime,
You can keep going.
I am concerned about the residents through no fault of their own, even the current owner, through no fault of their own. They are building on to what was originally purchased maybe 10 years ago or built 10 years ago when that extension on Ponderosa Street, it was dirt, but it was an extension to bring equipment in to build what is currently there. And the buildings were separated and you could drive through them off Forest Drive. You can still drive on the sides of those buildings. It's incredibly awkward as you're driving by to look into everybody's apartment and go, oh, they're watching the nightly news and eating their dinner, and good for them, through no fault of theirs. So you have to think about the quality of life of some of these people that are residents there. And we don't have control over the business itself in that regard. I think for first responders and the well-being of the residents, it's a concern. For me personally, if I had someone living there, and do I want an emergency vehicle going through the neighborhood as often as maybe they would do in an elderly, not even always elderly, there can be young people like us, but there's so many different components that cannot be summed up in 3 minutes. And you guys are much more knowledgeable about the broader scope of everything happening. But when you've lived somewhere where you have seen children grow up and grow out, and then it kind of slows down and children grow up and they grow out, that is the heart of our community, And you have Kit who walks her dogs morning and night, probably 10,000 steps twice a day. I don't know, she can tell you. She shouldn't have to sit there and stop by the side of the road every single time a car drives by. And I appreciate the opportunity. I really appreciate Mr. Moon's, diligence and his research, and honestly, a ditto with what everybody else has said. But moving forward, what can we do to promote a healthy environment, and this is what I researched was a suburban residential zone. I don't know what the heck the difference is between 1, 2, and Z, or 1 and 2, but I do see, as Scott referenced, the intent and under subsection A2 to prohibit uses which would violate the residential character. And if each of you ask yourself, what is the character of your residence? What made you purchase your house? What do you love about going home every night? That's character of the environment. And B, generate heavy traffic, to prohibit, generate heavy traffic in predominantly residential areas. So I don't really know what suburban is, and I don't know if it's 1 or 2, but it's clearly within the City of Kenai's zoning codes under 1420-090 to look into that, as I am pretty sure you guys all know that. That's why you're on that side of the fence. But I just want to speak from my heart. And even though I don't live there, my daughter does. And I don't know what her future holds. And, you know, progress is tough. Progress, we want progress as a city. We want business as a city. But we cannot lose sight of the core of who has been in this city. You know, I've been in the city since 1974. I've voted, you know, since I was of age to vote. I didn't get notice, or I can guarantee you, you would have heard me. And I just encourage growth, and I know you guys, your ears are open, or you wouldn't be sitting here listening to us. And anytime I've ever become before a board and said something, I know that our voice is considered by you 100%. That's why you're here. So just think about yourselves and think about the residents that their families thought they were giving them a safe place. And it's not their fault. It's not the family's fault. So what do we have control over? And maybe you want to hear from the fire department and the police department as an extra component of what is the best way for you to get there? Is there even a fire hydrant for you to hook up to if there is a fire? I didn't see one when I went on my field trip. And as everyone said, yes, the people that work there can go on each side of the building to access it. There is very, very limited space on the face of Forest Drive, which I think that's a building permit issue. And that's probably another body of the city, if I remember correctly, that would be addressed to. But you guys have voices that can talk to your people. And then I'm also very nostalgic. So progress, although I know it's important and good and healthy, I think we can say no to things and we can constrict things. Do I want police enforcement on the street? Not necessarily so, because regular people who live on that street have lead foots. Regular people who live on that street don't necessarily, they California roll through the stop sign. I happen to personally know one. I won't point fingers or make glaring eyes, but I know you guys are here. We're all here for the same reason. But first and foremost, children in the neighborhood are so good for us. They're good for us. They are good for us. And you know what? They're going to be deciding our futures before too long. So I appreciate the offer to listen to us. And I hope you do maybe explore it beyond what we've stated in your capacity of things that you know that I certainly am clueless on. But definitely safety with emergency vehicles, and as far as them responding to someone in need of it. And I think that might be it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. You guys have got about 5 more minutes if anyone else wants to chime in.
Well, one thing, it's as simple as an ambulance.
If I can, got to get you up there just so you're recorded, so, well, okay, everybody's
Can
going to
you hear me now?
Is that
Hello?
working there, Megan? Is that good? All right.
Okay, it's as simple as an ambulance going down North Forest. It used to be to go to the facility, they just made a left-hand turn. Now they have to go down Pine Street, they have to go down Ponderosa, and then make a right-hand turn off of Ponderosa. Simple as that. It's pretty dumb.
Another one of those troublemakers.
Yay, finally. The worst of the worst.
Now that you've heard our concerns as residents of that area, I would like to see some kind of a workshop of some sort where we can meet with those folks that own Aspen, if that's even possible, or manage it, to where we can come up with some kind of a program where if in fact those egresses and exits along the sides of the buildings are able to handle that traffic, then I think they should be using it. Otherwise, why'd they put them there? So I just appreciate your listening. I appreciate your service. I was up there at one time. I know what it can be like. And that's all I have to say. By the way, my name's Ken Peterson. I live at 1608 Pine.
I was gonna call you out on that next. All right. Well, I'll just say this, that I believe we're gonna put it on our agenda for February 12th. So that is for sure. And I think I'm gonna be in Juneau, so I don't think I'll be here. But the other, yeah, I'll let you say. And I was just gonna say one other thing about the noticing. That's something that we hear quite a bit. You know, we've got a council person here, and that's what gets sent out is what's in the city code. And maybe, like I said, we hear that fairly often, and maybe we need to look at revising that in the code to send that out a little farther, that people get a little better notification on things. So with that, I'll turn it over to our planning director. Well, I'm going to say that somebody must have got some, well, then. Yep, all right, well, I'm going to turn this over, well, okay, all right, I'll give you, what do I got here? Oh, yeah, you got 2 minutes.
I don't want to contradict my neighbors because I don't know what they received, but I did a little bit of research today before I came in, and I indeed did receive a postcard. But the only thing that's on the postcard is the title of the resolution, which was in my notes earlier. I read it into the record. It said nothing about expanding a road. In the notice that I received was for the purpose of expanding, was for the purpose of putting in the easement on Ponderosa. It wasn't directly to expand the buildings. But the conditional use permit, it was a modification of the original conditional use permit. So I saw it, and I don't have any problems with Aspen expanding their buildings, so I didn't pursue it. Had I seen expansion of road, I would have been in here and maybe saved a whole bunch of people's time.
Thank you. All right, now Director Buettner.
Great, mine doesn't stay on. Oh, you have to be smarter than the technology, sorry. No, I appreciate everyone coming in. We do definitely want to take your concerns to heart. If it's okay with the commission, since this was under the unscheduled business part of the agenda, I'd like to take a lot of these comments back, start doing our research of, what was sent out, when was it sent out, how was it sent out. All of this predates me being here in the city, so I kind of have to, go back through the file, make sure that I's were dotted, T's were crossed, talk with other departments like building permits and whatnot, just to see what's going on. And we're not putting you off by waiting till February 12th, but because that may have a public hearing component, we want to make sure that that is put into the paper and all the legal notices go with it as well. And since the Clarion's only once a week, their timelines kind of shifted us back quite a bit. So that's why we're not going to bring it up at the next meeting necessarily, but at the 12th, I'll bring a full report of what I found internally, and then we will have the, I guess, bigger discussion then, because it will be a potential action item on the agenda at that time. But if there's anything else in between now and that meeting, feel free to contact me by phone or email.
That would be probably prudent, I'm guessing, yeah. And maybe there may be some stuff that gets done in between there. Like I said, if you have ideas and need to get a hold of the city to go over some of that, we can. But, and I don't know if there's a way to, they got emails on a lot of that, or is it just addresses? I'd say you could probably look at what that conditional use permit looked like in the meantime too, so you're more familiar with how that was processed along the way. And that might be something that you come into the city and we can get a copy of that for you too. Ken was probably part of that. No, you were already gone, weren't you? Yeah. Okay, well, that takes care of that. Now, there is an opportunity to speak again at the end if you want to sit through the rest of our meeting. If not, we'll see you guys back here on the 12th. Thank you. All right, we will move on to item E, consideration of plats. We have E1, Resolution PZ 2025-01, recommending approval of a preliminary plat, Barber Heights, for a replat of Lot 1, Rydell subdivision in the rural residential zoning district. Can I get a motion, please? Somebody.
I'll move to pass Resolution PZ 2025-01, recommending
we have a second?
approval of plat.
That's enough.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
we have a second?
Second.
All right, staff report.
All right. So very briefly, so this is at 5450 King Salmon Drive, which is a city-maintained gravel road on the southeast part of the city. Currently, there are no city water or sewer lines available to the lot. There is no installation agreement required. Essentially, just to the east, if my directions are correct, just to the east of this location, which is east of the Spur Highway, is a proposed development. All of that is in the borough. This is right on the city line. In fact, the lot that we're talking about is actually in the borough, but the owner and the developed side of the lot is in the city. So they're basically, because of the way that the plat or their property is developed, their residence is actually pretty close to that property line and would be essentially in these new developments' backyard. So they want to buy the lot, merge it with, or not merge it, that they want to keep the lot, and we would recommend, there it is, that any future development on this property, which is just to the east of where the residence is, would conform to all federal, state, and local regulations. And we would also recommend a plat note that all lands within the city of Kenai, which is their residence, are subject to the city of Kenai zoning regulations. And additionally, all development on Lot 1A, which is the one in question, which is technically in the borough and not in the city, must also comply with Kenai zoning regulations, and that the landowners would contact the city for contact us prior to any development that would occur. So essentially just not merging the parcels, but treating them as a cohesive package.
Done?
Yes, sir.
All right, there is nobody here to testify, so we will close that portion and bring it back to the commission and Commissioner Petty.
So is it my understanding that are they wanting to build on the lot that's in question?
They have no plans at this time, but to the east of the lot in question, there's another subdivision that's already been platted and is going to be moving forward, but that's fully within the borough, so we don't have any jurisdiction on that development. This is really so that this lot 1A, even though it's not in the city, is going to be treated as, I guess, quasi-city, because we're going to treat their original parcel and this parcel as a package deal. So we're not extending the city borders or anything. We're just basically saying we approve, or we would recommend approval that this lot, if it is developed, conform more to city because of the existing structure from the existing owner.
And their current dwelling is in the city limits of Kenai?
Correct, it is, but it's on the very eastern side of their lot, which
Yes,
is
I see
the
that.
city line, and
Yep.
they kind of want that buffer between them
Sure.
and the new development.
Uh-huh. And just like other, other building opportunities, they would have to vacate a lot line. And would that, by vacating that lot line, would it be absorbed into the city?
If they chose to vacate the lot line and turn it into one parcel, it would.
Okay.
But they have expressed no interest. They basically just want more of a vegetative screen,
Okay,
so they don't have to look at the neighbor's backyard.
certainly. Thank you.
Commissioner Fikes?
I think I heard your question, and mine was, is that the single owner wants to maintain both properties, and as such, the city's stance is that they will allow them the same rights as the first lot to the second lot. And so my question is concerning the road. Is that a city-maintained road?
It is up to the point of this lot currently. It is city maintained, but it is a gravel road.
So it's city width, and it's city plowed?
I will double check. I believe it is.
No.
I'm looking.
Have you been down that road before?
I've been down that, and I can barely squeak by, and so if you're talking about additional development, I'm very concerned, because it is a very sketchy road. So it's definitely not the 60 that you would normally, and I have never seen a city plow anywhere near that area.
While he's looking, I would assume that that's an old road, so that probably the standards were much different than what their standards are now, so it might have been approved and signed off way back in the day, but go ahead.
And I think you're right. I would say more along the time that the Strawberry Roads were developed, because the Strawberry Road subdivision has a lot of similarities.
It does say it is a city-maintained gravel road. Anything extending off of that would be fully on the borough, because this lot is, the lot in question is actually not in the city. The city ends at this person's lot line, which is just past their driveway, so
King Salmon is not 60 feet wide, rarely sees any gravel, has steep cliffs on either side, just a heads up.
All right, any other discussion? All right, I guess we are done. We'll call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fikes?
Yes.
Commissioner Fikes?
That'll be a yes for me.
When I hear what I heard my name. So if you'd like to enunciate more clearly, I would be graciously appreciative.
I will do that.
Thank you so very much.
Commissioner Woodard?
Yes.
Vice Chair Twait?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. We have nothing for public hearings or unfinished business. Item H, new business, item H2, recommending the Kenai City Council enact ordinance to be determined, amending Kenai Municipal Code, Section 14.22.010 Land Use Table to allow airports as a principally permitted use in the Airport Light Industrial Zone. I guess we want to get a motion for that, probably, huh? Yeah, let's get a motion, please. Commissioner Woodard.
I move to approve or enact ordinance number XXXX 2025.
Second.
All right, staff report.
We did just get the ordinance number, so when it's presented to council, it actually has a number. I believe it's 3448-2025. But that will be documented in the record as soon as it's presented to council. Just a little history, we've had this, Kenai is essentially, no surprise, built around the airport. That was given to us by the federal government in 1963. In 2016, however, they decided to, the city of Kenai enacted the municipal code section 14.20.065, which is the airport light industrial zone, creating that new zone. The subsequent action at that same meeting in May 2016 was then to transfer everything in the airport reserve boundary, which is the core group of properties, 51 different parcels in and around the airport, to this zone. When I got here, I was starting to go through, and we noticed that, based on an inquiry for another area, that because the airport is located in the airport light industrial zone, it is technically a conditional use, which means our airport should technically have a conditional use permit, which we thought was just extraneous. A burden on them, burden on us, and it really achieves nothing because the city's reporting to the city. So for some clarification, and just to streamline everything, we are asking for your recommendation to council to amend the code to allow by right, by permitted use for airports in the airport light industrial zone. We're also going to keep them in the conservation zone, which they have been, and which the airport used to be zoned. We just think that this might have been an administrative oversight back in 2016, and we just want to correct the record and make everything, mind its P's and Q's, so to speak.
Seems pretty straightforward to me. Do we want to ask for unanimous consent for that?
Yes, may I ask for unanimous consent on this ordinance number to be determined 2025?
All right. Any objections? All right, seeing none, it passes. Item H3, discussion for a review of CY 2024 and our developing of CY 2025 goals. Mr. Buettner.
So this does not necessarily require action, so we don't necessarily need has the word recommendation, we don't have to go that far. Other commissions in the city, to my knowledge, kind of set a roadmap for what they would like to see happen within their purview moving forward. I know that 2024 is kind of a turbulent year with the former director leaving, having an interim, me coming in, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, but not necessarily knowing all the ins and outs for the city. So to my knowledge, I couldn't see where we had set goals for 2024. But if you did, please let me know. But just maybe an ongoing discussion that we may start tonight, or we can push off to another meeting. But planning priorities that you might want to see, whether that's additional outreach, like how would you like our department as the planners to interact with the public and with businesses, with residents, basically to make your job easy as the commission, but also to ensure that the public, I did invite, we had several inquiries about the Aspen Creek, so I invited them because I felt that this was a correct venue for them to bring their concerns, ultimately because it was a conditional use permit. Because if they had taken it to council probably would have kicked them back here, and that would just been one more hoop. And so I did kind of take the initiative on that, good, bad, or otherwise. But if there are things that you want us to do as the planning staff, we're open to suggestions. We definitely want to be a little bit more proactive and look at things that may need improvement, because if there's a way to make things, like I said, easier on all of us, that's the direction we would like to take it.
Commissioner Fikes.
Just to speak to some of those concerns, some of the things, as I recall, from your predecessor, some of the discussion, I don't know if it was actually formalized into a goal, but I do know that a lot of the discussion that was generated on the commission panel here and was fed back to the director was, what are we doing about conditional use permits? How are we streamlining that process, and how are we vetting that everything is complete once it reaches the desk and we're open for a hearing, if you will, or a discussion with the public? Prior to that suggestion and execution, things were kind of haphazard and incomplete and delays. And so I believe moving forward, it seems like that's been corrected. There was a streamline of the process. The packets seemed to be genuinely vetted. The applicants seemed to be thoroughly putting the details into the conditional use. And so I think that was an action that was suggested and corrected. Another one that I recall that was discussed was the end of the year reviews of these conditional use permits and any topics of complaints that may have been generated. and then the process, if it was negative, and how that was executed, and then the resolution, if that was brought back, so we could see, again, if there was a process that we could adjust or amend. So those conditional use permits seem to be the most touchy ones. And then I think also, I don't know, again, if it was brought up as a goal, but it has certainly been discussed on the commission here quite a bit, and that was the notification process. And I do recall the director before you going into that in great detail, discussing how that's done, how it's posted, how it's advertised in the paper and whatnot. But I believe, if I recall from that discussion, that she was strictly following the code. And so unless there was a change to code, she was bound by that 300 foot. Because a lot of times, just like brought up tonight, that 300, people were like, well, maybe 500, or I'm right on the line. And I thought, from what I recall, it was, she couldn't go any further. So I don't know if that's something that we could revisit maybe.
Anyone else? I would suggest, since we're only 4 of us here tonight, too, maybe if you could just shoot an email basically to all of us and let us have some time before the next meeting, and maybe we can come back with some other suggestions. And I do think, like Commissioner Fikes mentioned, the noticing thing is every conditional use permit that's contentious at all, it's always the fact that people didn't get the notice. Sometimes it's their own fault, I'm sure of it. But like this one, I think if you were going down Pine Street and you were on the left-hand side as you're going down towards Ponderosa, you certainly wouldn't be in that distance, but you're certainly affected by all the traffic going down there. So, I mean, there might be some discretion that just needs to be used when we look at those kind of situations, because they're as equally affected as somebody that's butted right up against the property in that situation. So, other than that, I think, like I said, if we got a couple weeks to come up with any other ideas, maybe we'll do it. Commissioner Fikes?
We had in the past, and I don't know, maybe it's still something, but I kind of remembered it was always at the top of the year, we had a review of abandoned cars and abandoned buildings, and there was a direct, okay, yeah, that was what I was looking for.
Boy, oh boy, did I find a couple of those for you. I was like, wow. All right, we'll move on. Reports. I guess we'll let you continue talking, Mr. Planning Director.
As long as I don't have to hear myself talk, that's the best part. But, sorry, Megan, you have to listen to this meeting again later. So I won't read them verbatim. We did put it in the packet, but I'll make sure it gets back out to you guys just so you have it in your hands. I can pass all these down. I will send it back this way when they come back. They go together. So we have started to do a little bit better in tracking a lot of different things, public inquiries, code enforcement issues, and the status of said code enforcement issues. Other complaints that may not go all the way to code enforcement, leases, just basically what is it planning and zoning is doing. So we have been doing that. We're going to be putting these more into an ongoing status report, so you guys will be getting these at least once a month. We provide them to council, but I think it's important for the commission to also have them. I do want to thank you guys for the work and dedication to the city of Kenai. Again, with all the turbulence that we've been going through, you guys have kept the planning and zoning on an even keel, so it was a pleasure to come in here, and I didn't have to chase my tail immediately. So because of that, some of the things that we wanted to do in 2024 have been pushed into 2025. But we're ready to jump on it. The big one is probably going to be the hazard mitigation plan. We're waiting to hear if the state is going to fund it. We're in line for funding with them. If they say yes, then we'll get a consultant. If they say no, we can't get it this year, we'll have to do it in-house because it will be expiring in 2025. And this just allows us to use or go after FEMA mitigation projects. This does not preclude anything if a disaster does, heaven forbid, if it does happen. Disaster relief is completely different. This is more to help alleviate beforehand, before the disaster happens. And there's a lot of different things for a lot of different departments throughout the city that can be a part of that. Looking into 2025, I do want to ask for your support because we want to take a more proactive economic development focused direction for the city. Not that all business can do whatever they want. we have to balance the needs of the residents, and balance the needs of the businesses, and also acknowledge that tourism, even though it can be fun from what I hear in July, how do we balance everything so it's a pleasant experience for everyone involved? Knowing that for a couple weeks, you might want to go to Hawaii or something. We're also looking to go after some grant funding to start moving some of the other projects like the waterfront revitalization. We had a feasibility study. We want to take that to the next level and start seeing what can we do. But any of that's going to take us going after some grant funding to bring some people on board to, figure out if there's a way that we may be able to incentivize private development, and there may be a public-private partnership. We don't know what that looks like yet, but we don't want to say, hey, we have the shiny study, put it on a shelf and never see it again. We're also looking to potentially, we bring it in front of you with some recommendations where we have hotspots of conditional use permits, where the development pattern, again, good, bad, or otherwise, has already happened. And if we have, I'll just pick any street, Street A, and it has 8 properties that have a conditional use permit, and there's only 10 properties on the street, that exception has now become the norm. Does it make sense to rezone it to a zone that allows those uses to eliminate the conditional use permits because of that, because of the use? So there are a few places that we're looking at, and we bring that for your review and consideration in the future. And let's see. And the other thing is that we are planning and zoning staff are planning to work with other departments throughout the city to go after some additional grant funding. I have a pretty substantial history of going after state and federal grants to, planning's great, but we want to take plans from a plan to implementation, and then it becomes Public Works' issue or the parks issue. So to actually implement it, but we would definitely want to move the needle on, improvements or different projects here in the city. So that's kind of where I see 2025 from my seat. But again, I'm here to help you guys through the whole process.
Very good. Any questions? All right, our commission chair is not here, so we're going to move right past that. Borough Planning, Commissioner Fikes.
All righty, so we had a pretty robust meeting. The last one we went to was on December 18th, and the next one will be on the 13th. The one on the 18th that took place, we had a resolution before us for a conditional use permit for a modification of an existing gravel pit. And so, as you all know, that can be quite contentious. And so what ended up happening is the meeting before that, we ended up going into an executive session, and we were able to come up with a resolution and some findings to support the standards. And so we were able to present that information and to present the findings that we were able to freely discuss in that executive session. And so that considerably streamlined the meeting, and I believe hit on all the points that were brought up, some of the volunteer criteria that the applicant was willing to address. So we were able to ultimately approve that, and that location was actually in the California area off of Virginia Drive. And so that conditional use permit was approved. And there was a modification, and one of the biggest issues that they were looking at doing was drilling into the water table. And so what ended up happening during the discussion and then further clarified during the resolution is, like I said, the applicant agreed to pull back on one of the criteria that led to the testing. And so when he pulled back on that criteria, then there was no need to even continue with the drilling into the water table. So that was a good thing to see. And then we had a ordinance to amend FEMA. FEMA had a flood insurance study, and so they brought it forth to the borough. And much like Kenai, I think, if I recall right, we had it before us, and for whatever reason, I don't really recall, but we let it go by or we turned it down, and then the following year, we realized that mistake and we said, well, no, we definitely want to participate. And so Similar discussion occurred at the borough level. Why does the borough want to participate, and what does that mean if they do participate? Well, that means that the public, if they would like to, gets a reduced rate on obtaining flood insurance. And then also it offers some other opportunities for grants and stuff like that with the federal government through participation if the borough participates. So it's kind of a win-win for the public and a win-win for the borough, but it was never really discussed before, so it was nice to hear both from the borough and from FEMA to get everybody's input on what that could actually look like for the public and, like I say, for the borough. So that was approved. And then we had a conditional use permit for a concrete loading and temporary seasonal use boat ramp in the Kasilof area. And for those that are familiar, the old homestead was sold and the state took over the so the property of the homesteader was sold and the state of Alaska took it over, and so they're developing it so that the public has greater access to the Kasilof River. And so what was presented to the borough was a conditional use permit for that area to install a concrete loading pad. And so there was continued discussion because I'm not real familiar with that area, but from the discussion, it sounded like if you were to take your 20-foot truck and your 20-foot trailer and back it down that gravel pad or concrete pad into swifter moving water rather than slack tide, that was going to be a cable and a harness and a wish and a prayer. And so there was a lot of safety discussion. And then again, there was a lot of homesteads and very few homes in that area. And so that was brought up again as to this was quiet and peaceful, and now all of a sudden we got the John Q. Public in our backyard doing the fish cleaning. And so there was a lot of discussion on what the state was going to do and what was allowed by the state, and so what was actually in the permit. So it was all in code, it was all approved, and so it was all surveyed, and so it moved forward. But it was interesting to hear, like I say, a lot of the feedback and the comments from the public and some of the safety concerns. So it wasn't just, this is what we're going to do, and it was stamped. It was, like I say, there was some really robust discussion. So I was glad to see that. And so the public will be getting some greater access to that river. So that's a good thing, economic development. Then we had some building setback encroachment permits in the Bear Creek area. And that one was kind of a isolated area way away from the public and not really impacted anybody but the one homeowner. And so that one was approved. And let's see, then we moved on to a right-of-way vacation. And that was in the city of Homer, and that one had some more discussion and some more review. And so that one was ultimately postponed until this next upcoming meeting. And then we had a utility easement vacation in the Sterling area, and that one was ultimately approved. There wasn't really much of an issue there. We had eight plats that were reviewed, and one was postponed. Or excuse me, we had 9 that were reviewed, 8 were passed, 1 was postponed. And then we had some director comments talking about some upcoming training that's available, and some further discussion on the newly passed gravel pit ordinance. So that's probably something that we might want to take a look at as well. And our next one, January 13th, is going to be a Zoom only.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Councilmember Askin.
Thank you, Chair Twait. Our last meeting was December 4th. And we had one ordinance. We accepted a grant from the Department of Homeland Security to add a cybersecurity section to the city's emergency operations plan. And we had 4 resolutions where we authorized the purchase of 2 or 3 Ford Police Interceptors for the police department, and authorized the acceptance of 2018 and 2020 Copper River and Prince William Sound Salmon Disaster Relief Funds. That's funds that was distributed amongst the state, and we got a portion of that. The same thing with the 2018 East Side Set Gillnet and 2020 Upper Cook Inlet Salmon Disaster Funds. And then we adopted an alternative allocation method for the Shared Fisheries Business Tax Program and certified that allocation method fairly represented the distribution of effects of fisheries business activity in Fisheries Management Area 14, which is Cook Inlet. And then the December 7th, we had our auction, land auction, and every piece sold at about 118% of appraisal value. So that was great. And
Commissioner Fikes?
What are some of the goals for the joint work session?
we're working together possibly on some playground equipment for the Old Town Playground up by the Art Guild, and also possibly fire truck.
Commissioner Petty?
What was the date of that joint work session? Is the
It's the
public,
16th, it's the day after the council meeting, and
okay, public is welcome?
and we are meeting at the visitor center,
Oh, okay, thank you.
because they're gonna go through the new exhibit. Because they've totally redone the exhibit at the visitor center.
Anyone else? All right, item J, additional public comments. Nobody anywhere. So next meeting is on the 22nd. If you're not going to be here, you will not be here. Okay, well, we'll make sure somebody else is here then. Commissioners' comments and questions. Commissioner Woodard?
Well, I guess I just won't be here next time. And I won't be in touch, I can't get in touch, so I can't be on Zoom either.
All right. Commissioner Petty?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to thank all of our community members that we have the honor to serve and represent for all their comments and concerns for the challenges that they're experiencing over there with the temporary conditional use permit. And I want to make sure that every council member is up to speed on that, along with the mayor. And I would like to see that we review that conditional use permit, and I would like to see that conditional use permit in the packet for next meeting, so that we could review that before the meeting that's scheduled for the following opportunity for us to meet. And I'm thankful that they came and brought it to our attention so that we're made aware of it, so that we can implement and help find a timely resolution and resolve that issue. Thank you.
Just to clarify that, and maybe Mr. Butner can answer that too. So do you want that on there somewhere that we can actually have a discussion about it, or just have it for us to review on our own?
I would like to review it on our own.
On our own, okay.
May I ask one clarifying question? Would you like both because the second one modified the first?
I certainly would. Thank you.
Commissioner Fikes?
I just wondered if staff has any opportunity in these grants that you're pursuing to address any kind of increased lighting in our neighborhoods or any kind of new opportunities in road development, if there's any kind of reflectives on the side. So I know we have different zones. We have some suburban residential, some with sidewalks, some without. And so those that have the greatest pathway for foot traffic for the kids back and forth to the middle school and whatnot, Lawton Lane is an example. So I'm just curious, if there's some kind of striping at the very least that we could do that's maybe reflective, that kind of helps, because if you're walking and it's really, really dark.
All right, I will add nothing more other than say that we have nothing else before us, so the meeting is adjourned.